what if the managers really thought about this and said, you know what, we're not going to hang our judge and our commissioner's court out to dry.
Right.
We're going to step up and we're going to be part of the managing governing body of this county.
Right.
I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, I love every single person that works for me, but I think I can make it with one less person, and I'm willing to try it.
You are listening to Newton County Daily. We're actually sitting down with, well, Precinct 4 Commissioner Leanord Powell. Leonard, I appreciate you sitting down with me. We have had an interesting evening. We started out live on Facebook, and Facebook blocked us. Some of you jerks out there decided, yeah, we're going to rat us out because we were on live. And then Facebook decided to use their AI and shut us down. So we are shut down from doing any kind of live situation here on this wonderful Thursday evening. Now that we're at 6:45, I felt like we were getting a pretty good pace by the time we found out everything was going off. But okay, so we're going to start over. We're going to record. We're recording this thing right now, and we're going to make this available to you on YouTube. You're probably watching it on YouTube, but we're going to make this thing available and see how far we can get with this thing. Once again, thanks for taking the time to sit down, communicate with the people.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Let's jump off into why we decided to do this. Okay. Now, first of all, when me and you initially talked about sitting down, there was a proposed budget talking about were we going to go no new revenue, or were we going to go de minimis, these different terms being thrown around. And then everything kind of centered in on the de minimis tax rate, which from what I could tell just basically is Latin for we're going to increase your taxes. So what's your take? Now since me and you put all this information out,
yeah,
gears have shifted.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Well, I'm not sure because I'm not in those discussions, but I hear things.
Yeah.
I hear things are changing, which is good, right?
You guys didn't have a workshop planned for Saturday.
We did not have a workshop planned for Saturday.
We do now.
Yeah.
And that's open to the public.
That is open to the public, 10 a.m. at the courthouse in Newton,
Okay.
on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
Yeah. We want everyone that's interested to be there. I guess we'll. If I could, let me start off on why I wanted to be here. Okay.
Sure.
I mean, you brought that up, and and one thing we talked about doing a live interview, and you mentioned that there was no prep.
Right.
Me and you haven't prepped for this meeting. I took some notes. I put some figures together because I'd be a fool to come here and talk with you without being able to reflect on what some of the key factors the budget had in it. But what I would ask you to do is put this thing out there without any editing.
Yeah.
That may have blocked the live interview.
Sure.
But let's give them a raw interview.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want you to edit it. I want it to be what it is. And if I step on my foot, that's fine. But
right.
Let's just go with it. When you get through doing this, post it as soon as possible. Because to me, the reason I'm here, one of the two reasons that I'm here, is to get this information in front of people.
Yeah.
I want people to know what's occurring.
Right.
Then they can speak their support for one or the other, right?
Right.
Or maybe even something in between, right?
Yeah.
And they can reach out to their commissioners. They can reach out to me, tell me how full of mud I am,
right.
Or whatever, and they can reach out to the county judge as well. But that's probably the main reason I wanted to do this interview. And then secondly, another thing, I put a lot of information out there. I believe in that. I said I was going to do that in 22, and I think I've held true to that. In my precinct and countywide, I've put a lot of information out there.
Yeah.
And I've been slammed by some people for doing that. You got ulterior motives. You want to be judged. You want to be these things. And I made Ronnie Cochran a promise, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. I told him that I wouldn't run against him. You know, Ronnie's a friend of mine. I'm not going to run against him. So the people that are saying I'm communicating all these things so I can be county judge, I'm saying now I'm not going to run against Ronnie Cochran. How about that?
Right.
Okay. I'm going to support him. I'm going to try to help him. I'm going to try to help him in every way I can. And I think by me being here tonight, I'm helping our county judge and our commissioner's court in hearing the voice of the people. I personally don't think that we fully understand how tired of taxation people are.
Sure.
I think I have a little bit of an edge over the court because Deweyville just went through a bond issue, and man, I stayed out of it, but man, it was ugly, and the people spoke, 4-1, and they'll tell you, we want a new school, but we don't want you to tell us how to spend our money, and I stayed out of that, and but I learned from it, and what I've learned is people are tired of taxation. They want you to do everything you can with what you got.
Yeah.
And then if at the end of the day you can't make it and you have to raise our taxes, you better only raise them what you have to raise them to cover the bottom line, because this de minimis rate is just a fancy word for somewhere in between, right? It's in between the no new revenue and the voter approval. But the bottom line is it increases the tax burden on residents of Newton County by approximately $500,000, $499,000 and some change. So that's what's going to happen.
Right.
And people can sit around, well, that's only this much more on each household. But the people that I represent, I heard them say, don't tell me how to spend my money. Do everything you can with what you've got. And once you've done that, then come talk to me about taxes. Again, I stayed out of that, but I learned from it. And it was a bad thing for my little community, and I don't even know why I brought it up here tonight. I wish I wouldn't have, but I learned from it, and I heard the voice of the people that I work for.
So with looking at the next workshop that's coming in 2 days from tonight, everyone's invited to come. Do you feel like the county is doing everything it can do before raising taxes?
I've said this in court multiple times. I argued for 2 hours, and the answer to that is no. Now, when you say everything we can do, I would applaud the judge for looking and doing what he's done, because I think since our last meeting and the phones are ringing and people has come to see him, I think he's really sharpened his pencil and went back at it. But it is a very hard thing to sit in commissioner's court and look across the table at people that you are talking about doing away with their jobs.
Sure.
That's a tough thing.
And they're really the only people who show up.
They're the only ones that show up. So what happens is, and again, I have I work with a great group of guys.
Right.
We have a diverse group.
Yeah.
We have a different, we think differently. We have different backgrounds, different interests, but we work well together. We support each other. We share equipment. We buy equipment together, and we vote differently.
Right.
But at the end of the meeting, we just agree to disagree, and we go get a cup of coffee, 2 at a time, not 3.
Right.
And but we have a great team, and I just wanted to throw that out there. But when you look across the table at somebody that you're talking about doing away with their job, and that's haunting, right?
Right.
Very few people can do that. But the thousands of taxpayers that are at work, you're not looking at them.
Yeah.
They're in Beaumont, they're in Port Arthur, they're in Jasper, they're wherever they're at, making money to pay those taxes.
To come back to Newton.
Come back to Newton and pay their property taxes, right? So when we talk about doing the hard thing, we talk about, boy, it's hard to raise taxes. I want to tell you flat out, it's harder for me to sit here and talk about the fact that we need to reduce some non-essential jobs. We've got 5 people in the library. We got a payroll of the library for $154,000. That's the library. Those numbers, that was what was proposed in the 2025 budget.
Right.
Okay. Now, if it's been cut since all these phone calls come in, I don't know about that. So I'm talking about what was proposed.
Yeah, as of
A week
today.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Saturday's data.
Not Saturday yet. We're talking about what was proposed last week. So, and then you talk about the library. You know, what are you saying, Commissioner Powell? I tell you where I'm at with it is, I don't know why we can't run the library with one part-time person. I don't know why we can't have one person work the library in Newton 3 days a week, go to Deweyville 1 day a week. And even if they said no, we because of the people that go to it, we're going to go to Deweyville every 10 days. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do that for a year and see where we're at in a year. Maybe we have something different in our tax base. But I think that's where we're at. That's where I'm at with the library.
Yeah.
And man, you said, man, you're a mean guy. I'm not a mean guy. I'm trying to run this county like I would a business, right?
Sure.
And then in the History Center, and before I talk about this, you know, you think, man, you're not very caring. Those are people. I get it, and those people haven't done anything. They don't deserve to lose their jobs, right? But I've never been involved in a layoff where the people deserve to be laid off.
Sure.
Anywhere. It was always by the
economics.
You had to do the economics. And in the county, we're not talking about increasing profit return. We're talking about making the bottom line work with the tax dollars we're getting in.
Right.
But in the History Center, we have 29 volunteers on paper. Now, sure enough, some of those people are inactive. And some of them just do research on computers at home and those things. But we have some of them that come up there daily. And then at the same time, we employ a person, the county does. We pay $51,000 a year with salary, wages, and benefits for a person to be involved in that History Center. The treasurer is volunteer, and the president is volunteer. So I'm not saying do away with any services. I didn't say that. I've never said that. And I've had people say, well, you know, Commissioner Powell wants to do away with services. I'm not saying shut down the History Center. Keep the doors open.
Right.
Run it with volunteers.
Right.
I'm not saying shut down the library. I'm saying maybe reduce the hours. Be strategic in your thinking. And, you know, if somebody comes back to me and says, man, you're going too far, we need one full-time. Okay, maybe we do. You know, but let's at least start the conversation.
Yeah.
And so I'm that guy. I'm that guy saying that. And I'm not being egotistical or proud to say that. It's not, you know, me and my wife, we, quite honestly, we talked about it, we prayed about it, and she cried about it. And but I promised the people when I ran for this office, I made 2 promises. I said, I promise you, this is before I won the March primary. I said, I promise you this. If you need me and you call me, I'm going to come see you. I'm going to show up at your house. And I'm going to spend your tax dollars wisely.
Right.
Now, once I got elected, I did begin talking about I'm going to try to improve drainage. I'm going to do some roads. But that was after the vote. Yep. Those 2 promises I plan on keeping. And I don't think that the judge or any of the other commissioners are going to be mad at me for this interview tonight or my stance. Right. I think they respect me enough to know that I respect them. They're going to vote their conscience. They're going to listen to their constituents, and then they're going to vote what's on their heart and their head, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure everybody knows that if you care about what's going on in Newton County, be at the courthouse at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. And then again, be at the courthouse at 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning for another hearing, and then a vote on the budget at 9 a.m. during the commissioners' meeting, and then that would be followed by the adopting of the tax rate. So what's happened so far, and this is part of the educational part of it, so the judge has proposed a budget.
Right.
And we looked at that budget and then what it would cost to fund that budget. And what it would cost would be about a $500,000. Even at a $500,000 increase, we were still $87,000 in the hole. I think the judge's email that went out this week, if we're going to meet Saturday, we got to cut $600,000 out of this budget to be a non-deficit or not in the hole.
Okay, so let me repeat what you just said for anybody who missed that. $500,000 would come off of
The taxpayers.
the taxpayers, and you're still going to be at about 80,000 plus,
87.
87.
That's what we were looking at before, yeah.
87 deficit,
Right.
even with increasing taxes.
Yeah.
Seems ludicrous.
Well, so let's continue on with our discussion of why we're here.
Right.
So the majority of the court, it was a 3-2 vote, and you and I have shared how the court voted. And nobody voted because they were mean. Nobody voted because hey, I want to raise taxes. They
Right.
voted because they thought they were doing. They feel in their heart they did the right thing. I believe that. Now, the question is: are the voters and are the residents of Newton County content with that? And if you are, don't make any phone calls and don't come to the meetings. Go to little league games.
Yeah.
Go fishing. Do whatever you want to do. But 2 weeks from now, don't call me.
Yeah.
Don't call me when you find out your taxes have been increased. You know, you got an opportunity to come speak. You're not going to have an opportunity to come cuss and scream and all those things, but you have an opportunity to come up and say, "This is who I am, and this is my thoughts."
Right.
And
Well, it's interesting to me because if we're looking at being in the hole even after raising taxes, and we have it, I mean, the first thing you do as a family when things get tight is Lucky Charms, Fruit Loops, what are some other?
ramen noodles.
You start going to ramen noodles.
That's what I'm talking about.
But you get away from the Lucky Charms and you start going to that bag cereal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the big bag.
Yeah, the big bag. Yeah, with the no name on it. You know, Tutti Fruities is on the side of it, right? And so you
And
start.
I laugh at your commentary, but it's not a laugh. I mean,
But it is true.
And that's where the majority of Americans are at right now, Jay.
100%. 100%. I mean, you know, I thought we ate malto meal as a child because we just liked malto meal, and it was because things were tight. I mean, that's what we was eating for breakfast. So what it seems like is, and I hate to say this, but it almost seems like with people who have government jobs of any sort, it seems like when it comes to cutting people back, cutting staff back, you know, granted, everybody and their mother's kin around this place, just like over in Jasper, just like over in Tyler County. It's not anything different, right? We've been running like this, and we don't want Sally to be without a job and all this business and all that. And I get that.
We don't want anybody without a job, right?
Thank God for Sally.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this is an economic conversation. This is not an individual and personal conversation. It is because people's lives are involved. But at the end of the day, it boils down to the fact that it wasn't just a September ago that the county wasn't going to be able to pay their monthly bills without the ARPA money. This has been coming. This event to this budget here has been coming. We was in a bind. It wasn't last year. Was it last year? Was it 23?
I would say we've been in a bind since 22.
Well,
22 is when we had to use the ARP, when the county had to use the ARP.
had to use ARPA money to limp themselves through the rest of the year.
That's correct.
So to me, this is not unusual. What's happened is the county bought all of the county employees that could potentially be cut now. They bought you a couple of years, is what happened. Because they kept paying the bills. And they didn't cut anybody loose. And when we spoke last year, you know, it was brought up that it was somewhere in the neighborhood of spending about $550 per month just to keep the lights on, right? And we did all the math and did everything out. Well, at this point, because of inflation, because of insurance rates increasing, I mean, that's now spending per month is somewhere between $650,000 and $700,000 a month. So what's happened is the spending has grown, and let's just say it's not because of anybody's fault, just through inflation. the spending has grown, and you're still carrying the same amount of people, just seems like an economic conversation to say, okay, we have got to make cutbacks ASAP in order for this county to make it into 2025 and 2026, period. And so whenever I, as a homeowner, sit back and just see the abused appraisal system, because everybody's feeling it from these appraisals, and the state's not doing anything, hasn't come to fruition with doing anything about that. And then the county comes to me and they say, hey, I know we ain't cut, everybody's still eating Fruit Loops, everybody's still eating Lucky Charms, but we want y'all to pay for more Lucky Charms. I have a problem with that as an individual. I don't feel like I'm alone. I don't think it's proper management of the economics of this county, which is not unusual, And so, the county, we got here this was a pathway to us getting to where we're having to limp over on ARPA funds, right? Back in 22.
Right.
So now we're sitting here going, okay, we bought you 2 years, more work. It's time to cut folks loose, And I'm not saying about specific to the precincts, but I am specifically saying somewhere or another, we got to find another belt loop in this thing. The only way to do that is cutting back.
So, I've mentioned, just two departments here that, I think are glaringly obvious,
right,
that we've got to do something. And I do want people to know that, I may have said it even in this interview because you kind of took over there for a minute, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's all good.
That's all right. Because everything you said was right on, right? So I've never said that we don't need to raise taxes.
Right.
And, the other commissioners are sitting there saying, we've been here for 5 years now, we haven't raised taxes. We're going to have to raise taxes. Mm. And I respect that. I respect their experience on the court and their stance on that.
Right.
And what I've told the court at least 6 times in the last 2.5-hour meeting was, I'm not saying we can't raise taxes, but we can't raise taxes until we've cut every bit of the fat out of the budget.
100%.
If the people that I work for find out that we're spending $200,000+ on non-essential jobs and raising their taxes,
yeah,
they're going to be in the courthouse. They're going to be up here. They're going to be saying, I want to know what happened, I want to know how this transpired. And I'm not willing to do that. I'm willing to sharpen the pencil and sit down and say, hey, quite honestly, can we cut one out of every office and go with a non-new revenue? When you get right down to it, when you get down to where the rubber meets the road,
yeah,
if you went to these offices and said, hey, look, can we cut one out of every office?
Right.
We've added one to more than one office since I've been here.
Sure.
So obviously it was making it before, right? So I'm just, those are the tough questions when you sit around and you say, man, we're making tough decisions because we're increasing taxes. No, that's not really tough.
The tough decision boils down to sitting down with somebody saying you got to go home.
You got to go home.
That's just what it is.
Yeah, and you make that decision in front of everybody.
Right.
Not in a closet.
Right.
You're doing it right there.
Sure. And
they're sitting across the table looking at you. But, I do think that there's some things that I don't think I've touched on in this interview.
Right.
We haven't touched on the SB 22 in this interview. So I think there has been more than one statement of, we're not going to cut services. So the Sheriff's Department and the DA's office are not even in the discussions concerning reductions. And the reason for that is because the state of Texas decided a year ago, well, it was funded last year, they give the Sheriff's Office $350,000. And what they told the counties across the state of Texas, they did this in every county, they said, look, well, they give some counties more, but for our size, they said 350. But they said, as a court, you can't touch what you've been given them. You leave it alone. We're giving them this money to increase the attractiveness of solid professional law enforcement, to build retention in those jobs.
Right.
When you look at our law enforcement agency now here in Newton County, I'm proud to say they're averaging right around $50,000 a year. That's a long ways from where we were 3 years ago. Thank God for the SB 22 money. The DA's office is a little bit different. They give them $175,000 and said it can only be used for salaries.
Right.
Again, the county couldn't say, well, look, if you're getting 175 from them, let me take 75 back.
Right.
Because the law said, no, you're going to keep them where they're at, and then they're going to figure out how to use this 175 to be better at what they're doing.
Right.
And I think they've done a great job. They've hired an assistant county attorney who absolutely works with the commissioner's court on everything we do and provides an invaluable service. So when we talk about reductions, the sheriff's department and the DA's office are off the table.
Kind of out.
They're not even in the picture.
Yeah, because I mean, if you got the state that's going to somewhat subsidize that spot, I mean, why touch it?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, specific to the library, civic center, and the historical over there, the historical museum and all that. Is there any revenue that comes in through those three?
Yeah, you know, I've looked at the budget and I've looked for revenue income in those, and I don't see it, and I don't see any revenue. There may be some book fees or something that's
Right.
insignificant, but no, there's nothing.
Nothing to speak of.
Nothing to speak of. Now, the nutrition center, you know, one of the things that stimulated this big, hard discussion was, like I said, you know, there was in the budget, it was $287,000 for the nutrition center. And I was like, oh my God, we can't afford that.
Sure.
Well, then when you you go to peeling back the layers of the onion, it comes out to where it's around $90,000 raw cost, because
Right.
you do get debt cog money back and you do
Right.
get other money back. And that leads me into this. We've talked about the library, and we've talked about the history center and the nutrition center. But I want to talk a little bit about the city.
Yeah.
Because the city, when we had our first meeting, Judge Cochran and the auditor went and talked with city officials and come back to us with high hopes that they were going to pick up close to $300,000 out of the budget.
Right.
Well, that has since diminished, and there's still talks going on. And I'm very hopeful, and I hope this interview will drive that. You know, I mean, people that work in the library, people that work in the history center, you know, go to your city council and say, hey, fund the history center,
Yeah.
fund the library,
Yeah.
you know, pick up some of this, because at the end of the day, those are right here in the city. And this county is so long and narrow that people on the north end of the county, people on the south end of the county, even I'd say people in mid-county, it's hard for them to use these services, because like the nutrition center, if they've got enough money to drive to Newton, they don't need to be part of that, you know.
Right.
And, you know, and I'm not taking anything away from the nutrition center,
Right.
the Meals on Wheels. I'm not taking anything away from that.
Right.
But we need the city to step up and help with those things. And the judge has passionately fought for the nutrition center. And after that discussion, you know, with the city and all, we felt like our raw cost was going to be down around $45,000. I think we'll see where that's going to go. The city council has to approve all of that, but it's still out there. But these are real costs. But back to, you know, you're talking $600,000.
Yeah.
So how do you cut $600,000 out of a budget that's already been cut?
Yeah.
You got to pay utilities. Inmate cost funding is going up to $180,000 next year, projected.
Okay.
So the Jasper Sheriff's Department has said, hey, look, you've been paying 45, you're going to pay 85 next year. I think I'm giving you the right number, 85.
Right.
It's a significant increase. I don't want those folks at Jasper to come over here and get on me, but I'm pretty sure it's around $85 an inmate. So we got a road ahead of us there. Then the tax appraisal office, you know, they send us a bill the other day. We're going up $87,000. A lot of people don't know this. We pay, next year we're going to give the tax appraisal office $655,000 for their appraisal services in our county. There's nothing that the county, I mean, it is what it is, right?
Right.
Now, there is a process to where we can challenge some of that. And quite honestly, I think that those discussions are going to have to be had in the future, because the appraisal cost for this county is just, I mean, come on, that's close to $1 million providing that service. And I think we need to consider, hey, can we sit down and meet in the middle on some of this,
Right.
because our payroll, the judge's payroll in the general fund,
Right.
the judge's payroll projected from the proposed budget is over $5 million next year.
Okay.
If he goes with a no new revenue, he's only going to get his hands on 7.8 million. You said, my God, that's 7.8 million. Well, 5 million of that's going to payroll.
Right.
And you said, well, that's still a lot of money. Well, property insurance is 450,000, 440 some odd thousand. I think we pay 444.
Yeah.
So there's $500,000 out of it. Okay. Well, then 180,000 for inmates.
Yeah.
And then 100,000 to the appraisal district. I mean,
Start chipping away at this 2 million.
It's going pretty quick.
Yeah.
So we are in a tight spot, and I know Judge Cochran can't be sleeping at night. I'm not sleeping at night.
Yeah.
I've been awake since 3 o'clock thinking about sitting here with you.
Well, I'll just say this, man. I mean, to me, when you ran specifically, there was a real tone of wanting to bring accountability and transparency to what's going on. I feel like you've done that with your Facebook posts and with communicating with different news organizations, that type of thing. It's been a little bit frustrating, obviously, and I'm not going to have you speak on the judge's office and what the judge does, but it seems to be frustrating that there's not more communication coming out from the entire leadership of this county. It's frustrating, and to be honest with you, to me, the way I look at it, if there's not communication coming out of some of these precincts, then okay, sarah, nobody cares. Out of sight, out of mind. We're gonna keep putting coal patch in the holes and keep moving forward. And so, but it to me, the transparency thing, and I know you have 2 commissioners who are going off, or should or not. I think Mr. Bombi, this is his last term.
Yeah. So Precinct 3 Commissioner, he will exit.
He exit at the end of the year.
Yeah, in January.
In January.
I mean, that's when his term expires.
Right.
I haven't talked to him about. I mean,
Right.
he could leave at any time. Basically,
Sure.
I mean, Commissioner-elect Prentice Hobson is in every budget workshop meeting,
Right.
and attending court and is chomping at the bit, ready to get going. So, I don't know what Commissioner Fahmy's plans are, but his term ends in January.
And I would hope that there's more buy-in to the transparency, right, in the conversations about transparency. And honest to God, this is a conversation that parents have with their kids. All right, guys, listen. I know you're still rocking a PS3. You know what I'm saying? But we ain't gonna be able to buy a PS5 this year. And it seems like that conversation is easier for some people to have and harder for other people to have. And to engage in those conversations. But I think I would hope more accountability and more transparency continues to grow inside of the court.
So when you say, and I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
When you say you hope more accountability grows in the court, what do you mean by that? Give me an example of how we as court members can be more accountable, because I want to be, and I want the court to be.
I think when it's kind of like I've said this before. When you run on hope and change, you better hope for sure you bring plenty of change. To me, when we start talking about accountability, start talking about transparency, there are things that's going on in this county that's troubling. There's not a PO system if we want to talk about accountability. There is no pursuit of even getting that system.
Oh, there's pursuit. You go back and watch the last workshop. There's a lot of pursuit. I mean, we talked about it for an hour.
But once again, going back to the buy-in.
Okay, there's not a lot of buy-in. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I want a PO system. I think that that's one of the flaws of this county. When you sit around and you talk about the budget, where we're gonna. I've heard more than one person say, well, to ask the auditor, well, where are we going to be at the end of the year? And she looks at him and said, I can't tell you where we're at right now.
Yeah.
In all fairness to her,
Right.
like we've talked about in the past, we don't have a tracking system. You know, the commissioners, they feel like they know exactly where they're at in their budget.
Sure.
And I believe they do. I feel like I know exactly where I'm at in my budget.
Right.
Down to the penny. Because I have Excel spreadsheets and I track it, right?
Sure.
But when I pull up net data don't agree with what I got.
Right.
It's always more money in my account than what I'm showing because I know what I spent. But the way our system works now, I spend money and I give the auditor, well, I try to give the auditor the requisitions every week.
Right.
But the reality of it is I could give her those requisitions every month.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And, you know, we got to have a PO system. And when we talk about these jobs, so I made the recommendation, I made a recommendation to, in the JPs, to have one assistant for 2 JPs.
Right.
And I said, move one of those assistants into a PO agent person. They would bring value added,
Sure.
and they said, man, you're wanting to cut jobs and now you want to add. No.
Repurpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's get value added for somebody. Let's move somebody out of a position of opportunity into a position of great importance.
Right.
So when someone calls or the judge says, hey, I need to spend $25,000 on this.
Right.
They call that PO person and they say, I need $25,000. I'm buying this with it. And they go, okay, Judge, what line item do you want to take that out?
Yeah.
Well, it's for new equipment. Okay, well, in new equipment, 034-101, you've got $72,000. Is that where you want it to come out of? Yes, I do. Okay, I'm flagging that system now. It's just been hit for $25,000 instantly.
And everybody knows.
Everybody knows it. And the system can't lie. It's instant, right? It's not a spreadsheet I'm tracking and what comes out of the bank when the check is cut. So right now what happens is our auditor's office is lambasted before court every week with a bunch of requisitions from all over the county.
Yeah.
Every office.
All over the county and all of the vendors that they could possibly ever use.
Correct.
So my point is, that's not a small stack of paper. That is a massive undertaking.
$28,000 a year worth of paper.
Yeah.
$28,000 a year for copying paper.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're in the 21st century. But anyways, I'm not throwing rocks, but
sure.
But we need to spend money to become more tech savvy, because the fact of the matter is, if we're not putting money aside to get a better system, we're falling behind. We got to have more people to run these antiquated systems. We get caught up with technology. All of a sudden, that auditor is sitting there going, you know what? I got time to go do an audit.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting there with a stack of requisitions that you go in there and it's like people are shuffling papers and they're doing everything else. But back to my point is they may be a month behind.
Right.
Okay? So
Sure.
So you don't know where we're at any given moment. Now, like I said, the commissioners and these other offices, they can sit there, and I went into this with the court, and I don't think people understood me. They say, I know right where I'm at in my budget. My feedback to them was, you might know right how much money you've spent.
Right.
But your money comes out of a general pool.
Sure.
That's everybody pulling out of. 5 people in a family, everybody's got a checkbook.
Yeah.
And at the end of the month, we sit down and balance it.
Or this is more like everybody has a credit card and nobody has access to the online banking.
That's probably a better example.
Another thing is this, man, just from an accountability standpoint, as a news individual, we rely a lot on freedom of information requests, communicating with the public, to communicate some things out here. And I'll be quite frank with you, this is the only county that charges money for freedom of information requests, and that started since I started over here.
I think I'm the one that made the motion to charge for information requests.
Yeah, well, all I can say is this. To me, it's ludicrous.
Okay.
Because if we're going to talk about freedom of information requests, it starts with freedom
Well,
of information. And I understand you tie up people
Yeah.
and this type of deal. And I would venture to say that my requests have not been completely absurd. But it almost feels like we need to start a GoFundMe page specifically for paying for the paper when we have access to technology and jump drives. That could all the data be put on on some jump drives and say, there you go.
Yeah. So you know, that's a fair question. You know, and again, I want you to run this live. I don't want you to edit it. I think because like I said, I'm the one that made that motion to develop a procedure to come up with a process to where we charge for information requests when they reach a threshold.
Okay.
Okay. So
do you recall what that threshold is?
I do not.
Okay.
I should have known that you'd ask me something about this, quite honestly, because I talked with someone on the phone last night about it, and you know they were animated about it because they requested a lot of information.
Sure.
And you know it's one of those things to where as a member of Commissioner's Court, it goes back to managing the county's resources.
Right.
And as if we have to take a county attorney, and that county attorney has to spend 60 hours going through and marking out people's social security numbers on bank accounts or their medical information and all those things. At some point, and it's in that procedure, you can go read it. At some point, we have to say, wait a minute, look, guys, we have got to protect the taxpayers because, quite honestly, we could be infiltrated to the point we couldn't even do our jobs.
Yeah.
So I don't think what we adopted is absurd, and we can agree to disagree on that. I mean, me and I consider two of the people that I've had this very candid conversation with. We agree to disagree on it, and I think they understand my point. I understand their point.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I personally, along with the court, felt like it was the right thing to do. Stand behind it.
I feel like this, just from my vantage point, looking into what I would consider a county government that has been, it's been referred to as being corrupt for years. I think it's a good stifling way to stifle requests just on the sheer fact that you're going to, I understand the cost that it takes to get from point A to point B and the $28,000 in paper. I get that.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way through systems and a repurposing help to actually get us to the point to where when a person comes out here. Now, if somebody calls you up and says, listen, I want all the documentation from the county from 1983 to present day month. I want to see everything. Okay. I'm cool with some charges. All right. Because of the absurdity, and I say absurdity, of just the vastness of the information.
Right.
Okay. And so from a logical standpoint, but then if we turn around and we go, okay, there's 5 pages here, and this requires us to start charging after 4 pages. The automatic response to the public is going to be, go pay for your freedom of information request.
Yeah. So what I would say is review the policy, and if you still feel the same way you do, come to court and let's talk about it. Like I told you, I felt like the procedure that was brought before us was a good procedure. We adopted. I felt like it was fair to the people.
Yeah.
And that's why I voted for it.
Do you guys get a lot of those?
I've got one since I've been in office.
This is my point. You have a handful of folks that's doing freedom of information requests, and sometimes it gets out of hand, right?
It was out of hand.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, it was out of hand. So what we did when we adopted this policy, we tried to adopt a policy that was fair to the person asking the information. Mm-hmm. And it was also fair to the county offices and department heads.
Right.
I mean, there reaches a point to where you can't do your job, right?
You have to manage what you can manage.
Yeah. So when you go back and look at those, and I know people are saying, because I talked to a guy last night, and he said all they had to do was plug that in and hand it to me.
Sure.
There's so much more to it than that.
Agreed.
You got to go. You got to plug that in, and then you got to go through there.
Yeah.
And you got to. And the county attorneys have to do this, right? And the guy said, well, my God, you hired a new county attorney.
Not to
do that, right?
Right.
Because, and that's what I told him. I said, look, I promise you, I call that county attorney 2 or 3 times a week. I was on the phone with him 3 times today.
Yeah.
For things that relate to my job on a daily basis.
Right.
Yeah.
What would you say at this point? You've been in almost 2 full years. What would you say are your goals at this point? Now, having some of the new worn off, maybe some of the tread worn off a little bit, but what would you say are some of your goals and objectives at this point?
Okay. Man, that's a great question. So, goals and objectives, so this job, it has 2 main branches.
Right.
One is infrastructure support within my precinct.
Okay.
Which I thought at first that was the most important thing. And then I come to realize it's equally important with supporting the court and supporting the business of the county.
Okay.
So my goals remain the same within my precinct. I'm going to work on drainage and I'm going to improve roads.
Right.
I have opened up more blind spots, put more, and I try to issue reports, quarterly reports. There'll be one coming out at the end of September. So those goals are known by my constituents. They're out there, goals and objectives. And I don't think that the people involved in this interview are going to care about those because the people in Precinct 4 know about them.
Right.
But from a countywide perspective, my goals is this. I want to support my county judge and my commissioner's court, and I want to help them be successful.
Okay.
I feel like putting stuff on Facebook about what we're doing is doing that. The other day when the court voted on the proposed tax rate, we did what we call was a recorded vote. So in other words, the question was asked, Precinct 1, how do you vote? Precinct 2, and on down the line. When we got through, I was like, wow, this is a major. I said, there's going to be some people here. Mr. Frommey said, nah, they won't even nobody show up. And I said, oh yeah, they're going to show up. He said, they never do. I said, when was the last time you increased taxes? I said, we're at a major state of inflation, and we just increased taxes. I said, and quite honestly, there's a sales tax limit for Newton County.
Sure.
And the judge said, well, I hope they do show up. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to make sure they do, because I'm going to make sure they know.
Yeah.
And so when you say, what's my goals and objectives? My goal is to help the court, the judge, the county move to a point of transparency. And I don't think there's a thing in the world wrong with that. I'm not undermining anybody here today. I'm talking about how I voted.
Right.
Now I feel pretty strongly about the PO system and all of my I talked so long the other day in court that finally they said, can we hear from somebody else on this? But and my response to that is I really like to hear somebody tell me why we don't need a PO system. So I was a little bit animated.
Yeah.
And but I want to help us get a PO system. I think that once we get that system, I think our county auditor and our county judge will be in a new place when it comes to budgeting processes and knowing exactly where we're at a given moment. And I think their lives will get really easier. So
yeah, I think so too. I mean, here's the thing: the only way you scale when you start a business, you are leaning on the necessities. The only way to scale a business is through systems. Repurposing people, finding better technology. That's the only way you scale. And so consequently, we're kind of at the tutti frutti stage of this thing where we've got to suck this thing in. But right now is when we start that process of repurposing, making some adjustments. And to be honest with you, anybody who says a purchasing system, a purchase order system, is a crazy idea, follow that bank account. That's all I can say. I don't care who it is. I
Yeah.
don't.
And you know, I would just say this. I think the people I work with on court, they are so confident in what they're doing. I mean, when we had the discussion, it was basically, we don't necessarily need a PO system.
Right.
The judge needs one.
Okay.
And you know, because I thought a lot about that after the meeting, and I'm not so sure that that's not a correct statement. Now, why anyone wouldn't want to be part of that PO system is another question, and I think it's more of a change issue than anything else. I don't think anybody's stealing any money. From what I see with the county, I think it's virtually impossible to steal tax dollars. There's so many checks and balances. Now, you're looking at me like that. I'm not saying that there's not ways to do it. I don't
Sure.
think that's going on, and I don't think that's the reason they're scared of the PO system. I think it's another one of those change mechanisms. But I think the judge does need it more than the commissioners, because the commissioner's money goes into accounts.
Right.
And there's 4 of them,
Right.
and that commissioner is the only one spending that money.
Well, I would kick back with saying this.
Let me just add.
Okay.
So that commissioner's spending that money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the judge's account, poor old judge has got every department head is pulling out of that general fund.
Sure.
So
Like a big vacuum.
any judge is at a disadvantage until they get that PO system. I'm sorry.
I would just say this. To me, I think it's very easy to steal taxpayer money. And here's how it's done on the redneck side of things.
Okay, let me know, because I ain't seen it.
Because here's the truth of it. When you were coming into office, your predecessor put 4 or 5 roads up for paving. Right there toward the end. They were trying to get it done. They got 2 done, I think, but they were trying to push for the 3rd. The contractor on that was the same contractor for all 5 roads. Now, just a redneck business guy says, hey, maybe I can get Gerald to come throw us a bid on this. Me and Gerald's good drinking buddies. And here we go. That's just as simple as it is. And so Gerald gets the contract for multiple situations. And to me, I would kick back to say it's not just a change situation. If you can pull up in a PO system that they've used the same contractor 845 times this year, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it might be a duck.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So my predecessor was using a contractor.
Sure.
That contractor is almost the only show in town.
Okay.
So I went out for bids for County Road 4181 a month ago.
Okay.
Man, I called Beaumont. I called different places. Hey, I really need you to come get a bid on this, because I don't know that I'm gonna have the money to do that road.
Right.
And I called around. Come get involved. Come give me a bid, man. Come on. Go get us a bid. Get it turned in.
Right.
When we opened those bids, that same contractor that my predecessor used was the only one that bid on it.
Yeah.
I rejected all of those bids. Go back and look at the court meeting. I bid the job 3 ways: cold seal, oil sand, and asphalt.
Okay.
That contractor bid it 3 ways. I rejected all 3 of them. It was too high.
Right.
Well,
see, I get what you're saying. All I'm using it for is an example to say how easily a PO system, if I click, because I run PO systems for major
you can
corporations.
identify a pattern. I mean,
I'm just sitting here going, hey, this is how the money's moving, and we know this, and nobody wants to see that, especially whenever most people don't show up.
Oh yeah, well, that's a problem. But back to that. So I went back out for those, reposted those. I called the company in Beaumont.
Right.
I said, why didn't y'all come put a bid in on it? I mean, you sent a guy down here to drive the road.
Sure.
Why didn't y'all bid on it? Well, quite honestly, it's one road. I mean, the bids I got were very high. It's 4,500 foot of road.
Right.
And he said, and do you have any more roads you're going to be doing?
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm going to try to.
Yeah.
He said, well,
One at a time.
we're going to we're going to try to get in on this. I said, okay, I'd really appreciate it if you'd submit a bid. It would mean a lot to me.
Right.
They're the ones that did the grant work down in Precinct 4, and they did outstanding work.
Right.
Do I think they're going to submit a bid? Man, I hope they do.
We'll see.
I hope they do.
Yeah.
Do I think it's going to be the same one that submitted a bid and did work for my predecessor? I do.
Yeah.
You know, I think so.
Well, and
So the only reason
that's not a shot at those guys, by the way. I'm not shooting at those guys.
No, I'm just
using it as an example.
And quite honestly, I guess what I'm doing is kind of sticking up for my predecessor to say I understand that dilemma.
Yeah.
You know, because it's real and constant.
Right.
Because that contractor's bought everybody out.
Yeah. Gotcha. It makes sense. It makes complete sense. It makes complete sense. So let's shift gears here a little bit.
Good.
Okay. Let's jump over to some questions that were sent in.
Oh no, let's go back. No.
So now we just got off the purchase order system, so we don't have to address that one.
Right.
There's a question here that was sent in. It says, let's see here. Talking about need an update on the FEMA payback.
Yeah.
We had the buyout that turned into the payback, right?
Yeah.
Where are we at on all that? How many? Because here's, I mean, it's kind of nuts that we're in this financial situation, and that's before we start talking about FEMA.
Yeah. So I'm glad that question was asked. I wouldn't have brought that up here tonight because I'm focused on budget.
Sure.
I'm wore out, exhausted with budget.
Sure.
And but we collectively, as a court, because what FEMA was, let me back up. TDM was showing up in Judge Cochran's office weekly.
Right.
We need our $800,000. We need our $800,000. We need our money. We need our money. We need our money. You got to pay FEMA back. We're handling this. They want their money. They want their money.
Yeah.
So we got together and said, we want our new assistant county attorney to manage this going forward. I hope I don't get in trouble for all this, but she drafted a letter on her district attorney letterhead and sent it to the state of Texas and said, going forward,
Right.
all communication with Newton County concerning receivables, they use that word receivables, I call it bills, but
Right.
they call it receivables, concerning receivables should be directed to my office and my office alone. Furthermore, I want to see documentation, or Newton County wants to see documentation on the receivables that have been paid back already. Crickets. So where are we at on that?
Wait and see that.
Well,
It's a good move.
I think it was a good move. I mean, hey, we're doing good work.
Sure.
we talk about the things we're not doing well, but we are doing some good things.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, there's some positive momentum forward. We'll say that much, right? We'll say that much.
That's that goal we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah. So, honest to God, just looking through here, we've hit a number of these high points. Let's see here. People asking about, why are we paying for health insurance when so many in the county don't have any?
Yeah, I personally don't know of any other counties that don't provide health insurance.
Okay.
I mean, that's me
Makes
personally.
sense. I've got a lot of people, so I'm just looking back through the live, the live deal, and there was 33 responses to, hey, where's the live at? So people were anxiously trying to tune in. However, I think in closing, because we only had a couple of questions. Do you think to spin this thing about the civic center and whatnot, and there not being a revenue and all this stuff? You think they ought to start charging people for utilizing that, or you think they ought to just continue to let it be a free situation? And that came from the people.
Oh. Man, you just beat me up for a public information request charging.
Just saying.
No, I'm serious about that. I mean, that's a serious matter that you ask, honey. I mean, the guy that did that wanted the public information, he's hurt. He's hurt at me. I think his trust in me has been a little bit faltered, and I tried to explain why I felt that way. But no, I don't think we can charge our way out of a staffing bill of $154,000.
Yeah.
I think where we should be with that is joining hands with the city,
Right.
saying, man, we need you. You know,
Right.
now, I'm not sitting here throwing rocks at the city. We need the city.
Right.
I mean, the city has an opportunity to help us here, and I know that everyone in the city don't want to see those services suffer any, right?
Right.
Not even less personnel, right? So now the people who live in the city may come back and say, no, don't waste my tax dollars on that either. So you know,
Right.
they have a voice in that with city council, but I don't think we should charge for those services. I think I'll go back to this. There's very little cost with the History Center.
Right.
It can be ran by volunteers, and there should be very little cost for the library. I mean, you know, when I was a kid and I went to the library, Miss Barnett was a librarian,
Right.
and she stayed at the counter, and the books were out there. You got a book, you brought it to Miss Barnett, and you checked it out. Now I know we've got computers and things are different, right?
Sure, sure.
But you know, I sit around sometimes when the grandkids are there, and I have to say, okay, guys, it's time to put the iPads up. We're going to visit for a little while.
Right.
Book readers and those things. So no, I don't think we should charge for those things. I think at the end of the day, we can't charge ourselves out of a $5,097,313 payroll
Right.
bill for the general fund. The general fund. We can't charge our way out of that.
All right. So if we said, what's the magic number? You're all going home today. And we said there's a number that we're looking at, economically speaking. I mean, if we're talking about the way I'm looking at it, if we're saying, okay, we're fixing to increase your taxes, which is proposed, we're going to increase taxes. That's going to bring in 500,000, but we're still 87 shy, breaking even. We've still got to cut 4 jobs right there. At least 3 that I can see at around 35 grand a piece, right?
Well,
So-
now a $35,000 job is over $50,000 when you add the benefits. So anytime you pay,
Okay.
anytime you
I
pay,
get it completely.
you know, it's,
So at least 2 people got to roll. Or somebody just has to volunteer their benefits.
So I'm going to go back to what I said in here,
Right.
up there in court multiple times. I'm not saying we can't raise taxes.
Right.
I'm not saying we don't need
Right.
to raise taxes.
Sure.
Can we cut to the point to where we're at a no new revenue? That's a good question. And hopefully we will do some good work Saturday morning at 10 a.m. to answer that question.
10-4.
And you know, I doubt very seriously if any manager is going to come to that meeting and say, I can do with 1 less in my department.
Yeah.
But what if they did?
Yeah.
Because what if the managers really thought about this and said, you know what, we're not going to hang our judge and our commissioner's court out to dry.
Right.
We're going to step up and we're going to be part of the managing governing body of this county.
Right.
And in doing that, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, I love every single person that works for me, but I think I can make it with 1 less person, and I'm willing to try it.
Yeah.
If every department does that,
Yeah. we're
we're okay.
Once again, we're back to whether or not people will buy in or not. And hopefully they will.
So I'm going to say this with all due respect. Those department heads are elected just like I am.
Sure. That's true.
So if they're sitting up there in that meeting going, I cannot do without my assistant. I cannot function without everybody I got.
Right.
They're going to answer to the voters.
Yeah.
If we look at them and say, because where the judge is at, he's sitting there going, hey, that's a countywide elected official, and if they tell me they got to have everybody they got,
They've done the assessment.
they've done the assessment. Who am I to say they can't?
Sure.
They can do it without them because he could cut too deep, right?
Yeah, that's true.
In industry, when you cut, you cut too deep and then you go back later
Yeah,
and make it up, right?
it's part of business.
Part of business. Is that where we're gonna be? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, where this is all gonna shake out is we're gonna make a few cuts,
Yeah,
some minor cuts, so we can say we've made cuts,
yeah,
and we're gonna raise taxes. That's not where I'm gonna be. I'm not, if we end up there, I'm not gonna be mad at anybody.
right,
I'm gonna be disappointed.
right,
I'm not gonna be mad at anybody, and I'm gonna say, when I get home that night, go to sleep, I'm gonna say, I did what I thought was right, and I feel good about where we're at collectively.
right.
And we'll move forward, and we'll keep working on that goal of improving Newton County as a managing body. But I really challenge the department heads. I mean, and that's a tough thing for people to do
Yeah,
that have never done it.
yeah.
And I would dare to say that they haven't.
When you spend most of your life trying to make people like you, these are difficult moments for those types of personality types. And so my encouragement is Saturday, 10 o'clock. I'm hoping you guys actually have it in a place where people can actually not feel like they're sitting in y'all's lap. Maybe down in the bigger space if people show up.
So let's talk about that. So I put that on my Facebook page that it may be at the second floor, and if it is, it'll be posted on the door. But there was a water leak in the courthouse.
Again, after all this restoration work,
Yes.
what the hell is going on with that?
Well, so there was a drain line on the air conditioner that backed up and leaked water. But anyways, my point is, I put on there that it may be on the second floor if the third floor fills up,
Right.
but it may be that we can. I know that they had to hold court somewheres the other day, the Civic Center somewheres, because that room wasn't available. So if we have to have it at the third floor, you know, we may just have to
Squeeze in.
squeeze in. But you know what? I hope we have to squeeze in because I can tell you, the taxpayers, what they need to understand is the people that are going to possibly be impacted by reductions in staff are going to be there, and they're going to have their entire families there.
Yeah,
Because everybody on that court's an elected official. So they're going to put peer pressure on that court.
sure.
And if other people don't show up, I suspect the court's going to look at it and go, well,
Nobody really cared.
nobody really cares. I told you they wouldn't come.
Yeah,
They don't care.
yeah.
I think they care. I care. I'm a taxpayer.
No doubt, no doubt. Commissioner Powell, I appreciate you taking time. We had obviously some, we mentioned that we had technical issues, but we had Facebook blocking us issues. It wasn't technical. We had all our technicals together.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you taking the time. I mean, we started this thing at 6. We're about to roll over to 8 o'clock now.
Hopefully we haven't talked that long.
Any final words outside of encouraging everybody to show up who is interested and who cares on Saturday at 10 o'clock?
Yeah, so I want people to know this. The judge and the commissioner's court, they're not bad people. These are tough decisions, they're tough times. You have an opportunity to influence their decision-making process, I think. I think that's evident with the changes that I'm seeing. But if you just sit by and hope for the best, you're part of the problem.
You get what you got.
You're part of the problem.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to call me and say, you don't know what how can you even say that? I can argue some logic on these thoughts. Just like I'm open to the public information request, man. It is what it is. At the end of the day, people are going to agree to disagree and go forward. And
Sure.
it's not a driving wedge. When we get through, and you mentioned the meeting, it's very important. I want to end it with this. We're going to have a meeting at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. A lot of Little League going on, quite honestly. If my kid had a Little League game, I would not miss a Little League game for that meeting. I'm going to be honest with you, and I don't expect anybody else to. But if you can be there, be there. Tuesday morning after that, at 8 o'clock, there'll be a public hearing at Commissioner's Court on the proposed budget. At 9 o'clock, the Commissioners Court will start court. There's going to be other things on the agenda.
Right.
And they're going to vote, we are going to vote on the budget.
Yeah.
We're going to adopt a budget. After we adopt the budget, we're going to adopt a tax rate to support that budget. That's the way the process works. I encourage everyone to be there. I know there's some folks from the south end of the county coming. I hope people come from all over. Again,
Will they have a public comment section of Saturday morning?
so it's a workshop.
Okay,
So that's a
so
great
how does
question. Man, that's a great question. So in a workshop, there's a lot less structure and parliamentary procedure.
Okay.
You know, just like the 8 o'clock meeting on Tuesday,
Right.
it's a public hearing. So people are going to be, yeah, you get up and speak. I don't know what the judge will allow. And quite honestly, the judge has to temper this. You know, if there's 100 people there and everybody wants 5 minutes,
Yeah.
you know, then he has some discretion to say, hey, I want 10 people that are for this and 10 people that are against this,
Yeah.
or whatever the number is.
Right.
And I'm going to give each of you this long, you know, to do a, you know, some sort of representation.
Kind of moderated.
Yeah, you know, so, but Saturday morning, there's no formal, you know, you're not going to be able to talk unless you wear a tie and all that kind of stuff. It's, you know, just come as you are and let's visit.
Easy enough. Once again, thanks for sitting down.
Thanks for the opportunity.